Get a dozen of them suckers, put them inside a cage, and it was like Jurassic Park. No, they don't have a tongue. He just ran them down. He get them, chase them back.
I used to have that little 4 or 5 good months alligator. Shit.
I remember that.
Nigga, you crazy.
Hey,
fuck that. I don't want nothing that could potentially eat me. Even at its biggest, and the iguana ain't.
As little as he is, man, he got 8
the 1 foot gator, they feed a mouse, and you just see him going.
Oh, watch me the mouse? No.
One time I took my iguana out the cage, and I had it on my bed, and my dog came in the room. At the time, I had a little Pekingese. When the iguana saw the dog, it puffed up and started hissing.
Did it go?
And then when the dog got too close, it whipped it with its tail.
Oh, damn.
It literally like, pow, and you saw the dog go like, what the hell? He looked confused as shit. So he got closer again, and the dog and the lizard did it again.
The feed is yellowish. Because it's even doing it on my phone.
Yeah, I can see it on mine.
So we have to go back to automatic.
So this is it right here, bro.
Yeah.
If I can't do it from there, I have to disconnect.
Yeah. So don't worry about it.
I mean, it'll just be what it is
for
now.
with it for right now.
Oh, we connected.
Yeah, we live right now.
So I have to disconnect the feed.
We is live.
Howdy ho, people.
Yeah, I'll have to disconnect the feed to do the switch over.
What the deal is, people? Hey, B, can you turn it around a little bit so we have some of
My phone.
You want to disconnect?
No, I won't disconnect.
No, I have to disconnect the camera to actually
Just turn that Bluetooth off.
No.
Pull the rug from beneath you.
talk about his phone.
I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
For me to switch to automatic.
What's that?
Oh, I know, right?
Oh, he got it anyways.
Damn.
I got it.
Right?
A lot of straw out of everywhere.
Do the switch over to automatic.
Part of my plan all along.
Right? I ain't know.
So I'm gonna have to kill the feed. So
It's just us all there watching ourselves.
to switch over to automatic, I have to kill.
No, we got 3 people.
No. We said don't worry about it. We just gonna roll with it.
Well, that says 4.
Yeah, let me go back.
Hello, 4 people.
That's us.
Hi, 4 people.
Hello.
People.
That's us.
Right?
Hello.
So hey, 4 people.
For us, by us.
Bobby not
The
even.
new food.
Bobby not even on.
New food.
Leah.
Oh, Leah in there?
Yeah.
What's up, Leah? What's happening?
How y'all doing, man?
Shoot, what's good in the world, y'all? Thank y'all for tuning in and watching us this evening.
Most definitely.
A lot of people probably gonna miss it because they still have to. They're on the old schedule. We lost an hour, so they probably set their clocks or whatever it is they use. You know what I mean?
You know what though, man?
They must
Hopefully
not
in
work.
2021, whatever device they looking at to see that automatically updates.
Oh no, these old people be finding ways, boy.
You ain't lying though.
These old people be finding ways, boy.
Turn that shit off. Don't even know they turned it off.
Trying to tell you, man. They be asking me certain questions like, man, I don't even know.
Like, why did you even go in that menu?
Like, what right? Know? Why did you even buy this? This works. Yeah, now you gotta solve that problem. Y'all know what I mean, man.
Man, I'm lucky.
Oh yes.
I'm lucky.
Y'all know exactly what I mean.
Oh yes.
I'm lucky
Y'all
my
know what
younger
I
son
mean.
is in the programming. We call him tech support in the house.
Mhm.
When anything breaks electronically, come in.
Yeah.
Take a look at this. What's that error message mean?
Yeah.
Just me and my mom.
Because otherwise I wouldn't have the patience.
Why the computer on
I
your
remember.
own? Because you have to hit the power button.
I remember one time, see, my mom be having a lot of problems with technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
And I remember one time my sister was helping her. Right, my sister was like, "I'll help you out, mom." And so they couldn't figure out what it was, right? And I was cool because I wasn't home, and mom needed help, and so I was like, "Oh well, it's like that. She'll help her out." And so she started helping him, And then they hit me back. And it's like, so I was like, I can't figure it out. I can't figure out with this screen that I'm on. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, what to do from here. So I said, take a screenshot of the screen and send it to me. So once they did that, it was the call screen for the telephone when you call somebody, and you're looking at it. And I was like,
no, I'm gonna make you laugh. Hold on. My former mother-in-law was terrible with technology. She was having trouble with a laptop. She maybe only had the thing like 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, whenever I turn it on, it won't do nothing. And of course, me being the son-in-law, she's like, take a look at it, see if you can fix it. So I'm going through and like you hit one button, it takes 5 minutes for it to react. It just was moving slow. And so I was like, what the hell is going on? Finally managed to get the task manager up to see what was running on the computer. She had, and I'm not lying, 12 different antivirus programs running on that computer at the same time.
She gotta make sure she can get no.
She kept downloading them because whenever she would see one of those messages, you might be infected by a virus.
Right.
She just, well, I don't want to be infected by a virus.
Right.
And she kept downloading. I'm like, why?
Which a whole bunch of times is a virus in itself.
Like, why would you do that? And she was like, well, I didn't know.
Wow.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
She ain't trying to get COVID.
Oh, Leah asked, what's for dinner, Ruck?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you said that because we had made. I ain't supposed to be eating on screen. I mean, hell, this all I got left. So
Taboo.
Ashley Deer just wrote the funniest cryptic message I've ever seen.
What?
I need some.
Hey, y'all,
I need to translate.
Long nose. Next time I call to see your face, answer me. I know you smell me coming.
Okay, so we know who that was directed to. Okay, we know.
I'm not even finna go there with the leprechaun. I'm not even finna go there with the leprechaun. Because see, what you don't want me to do, even though we ain't got a whole bunch of people watching. Actually, we got 10 people watching. See, all of those pictures, leprechaun, they stay in my phone just for these occasions. Don't trip. I get you on live.
What size shoe she wear? What size is
You
it?
about to make me pull the pictures out.
Don't do it. That's what she said.
Don't do it.
Just know it's on standby.
Yeah, man.
Like, keep talking reckless. Yeah, keep talking reckless.
This 7.
Oh man. Well, how y'all doing out there, man? Everybody good?
Yes, man.
We're good.
I've been tripping on that Kanye interview that
Man.
he gave, man.
I had a beautiful interview.
Yeah, it's
I
a
haven't
beautiful interview. It's a beautiful interview on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was good.
You get a chance to see Kanye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
right.
you get a chance to see Kanye.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You know, I think the difference between this interview with Rogan is Rogan kind of like had a mapped out set of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're interviewing Rogan, like he has a way of engaging his audience where it's just one-on-one and you're able to kind of control the narrative best as possible, you know, which can be tough with Kanye, much less anyone suffering from that illness to that degree. Right. So for Rogan to have done what he did, just like Charlemagne did, that's a huge feat.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in this setting, because it was alcohol and it was just like it was people he knew, he was comfortable with, he was in his own element, he could relax.
Right.
And I think we saw a different aspect of Kanye because of that. I think this is a much better.
Smoking.
He was smoking and drinking with him. Yeah.
I see
it was
a
much
different
better.
light after that. I'm like, okay, I see what you. I mean, may not care too much for you, but I see where you're coming from. I understand until you lost me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what he said there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think due to his illness,
Right.
he's gonna do this from time to time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when his thoughts are on track, man, Kanye says a lot of shit that makes a lot of sense, man. He really does. Really does. I agree with a lot of the stuff he says, man.
Oh yeah, actually was talking about. Actually, I want to know about this. What's up with the Astroworld shit?
Yeah, we was gonna talk about that, man.
Ashley was asking about that. Was crazy.
Yeah, that was
I
real
don't even know
crazy.
what happened. So what?
But
Okay,
died.
so they have the Astroworld Fest concert, whatever it is, Astroworld Fest or whatever it's called.
Right.
And they basically had a standing room only crowd. Where
50,000 people.
Yeah, so it was already packed to capacity, but then a group of people overran one of the fences, and it was too many
In
of
the
them.
beginning,
That's
in the
not it,
beginning.
though. That's not what happened.
No,
That's
no,
not
no,
what
that's-
killed them people.
no,
Way
no.
at the beginning
No.
of them people
Right,
stormed.
and those are two separate incidents.
Yeah, there was two different
but in the
things.
very beginning, that's what you're
Yeah.
talking about. 'Cause that happened before
Way
the.
before. You can even see it in the
I'm
video.
lost.
That's
Before it started.
in the
I'm
daytime.
lost. I'm lost.
So when you're standing outside waiting to get into the concert,
Uh-huh.
so it was a group. That's where everybody
A
was like
large crowd.
Yeah, and I guess they found a weakness in the
there's a
fence,
video.
Okay.
and they pushed it down, and they started going over.
started
Some
going
people
At
got
the concert.
yeah,
Okay.
but before the
During the
concert
daytime.
started,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So they
a few
started having
people got
So
trampled.
not only were they already at capacity, but then you had a couple more hundred people
they found their
bust
way
in. Yeah, busted in.
Okay.
And then I think somebody rushed, like there was a rush to the stage at one point during the show, and then people was getting trampled and stepped on and pushed down because it was just too many damn people.
Are
And they
those
were like
8 people
this,
died.
man.
are those two events related? Because these
No.
people were okay. So after they got past the fence, it was
Right.
whatever.
No,
Right.
it was
Whatever
Then
the
it was a
issue was.
concert,
But
and it
then-
was packed.
But you already had a
And then
group
that
of 50,000 people in here that was already
That's
in front of the
after,
stage,
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Well, the 50,000 was what they estimated to be the whole
Total.
thing. Yeah.
Total.
Everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the
Okay.
capacity was.
Okay,
I
so
don't-
nothing out here interfered with anything in here and
Nope.
chain reaction that
Right.
caused these people to run.
Right.
That's what I'm getting to.
Right.
Something
Okay,
happened at
okay.
the back of the crowd that made that crowd push forward and not
Right.
down.
Do we know anything about that?
I don't know.
But we don't know what
here.
started it or what caused it, but other than the fact that it was so many people,
Something
right?
happened.
And yeah, they were showing a bunch of different videos and people were like, move forward or move, you know what I'm saying? Like yelling out, move this way, move, we need room and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, people were saying they couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
People were saying that
People
the
were
crowd was
passing
so
out.
packed that they was passing out and then couldn't even fall over. They was
Right.
just like packed in.
Right.
Some had heart attacks and shit.
Yeah.
Right.
The 8 that died, I think one had a heart attack.
Yeah, it was that bad. People was like, one lady was I saw on the news this morning. She was actually a registered nurse, and she was just at the show, and so she said she was passing out, and if it hadn't been for her boyfriend crowd surfing her out of the crowd, she would have probably died. But then when she got inside the infirmary or whatever they had set up, she came back too, and she started realizing that the medical staff there was not trained to handle what was going on. And so she had to start helping them get people taken care of.
And they estimated that they dealt with 300 people just in there alone.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was just they just didn't have enough people. The people that they did have, according to that one lady, was like wasn't prepared for that kind of crowd and that kind of, I guess, fallout from it. Just it was one of those things you just couldn't.
So what happened? Like when they started rushing or whatever, were they rushing toward? Was the momentum moving towards the stage?
Towards the stage.
Yeah,
towards the stage.
that way.
So it indeed did start at the back somewhere.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing now is what, like, it's looking over the footage or whatever, seeing
guess
exactly
so.
how it
Yeah,
is.
Trying to see what happened. Because they say even Travis Scott, he was on stage when it started getting bad, and he noticed like some of the people getting trampled and stuff. So he was like, "Hold on, let's get these people out." So he called for the security or whoever to get a few of the people out of the audience because he could see it from the stage.
Yeah.
But they're even saying that he didn't really know how bad it was because, of course, it just from his perspective, it just looked like a packed audience.
Wow, right.
And listen, if anybody has any information they want to add to it or anything like that,
if
y'all
anybody
please
was
call
there.
in. Yeah, 281-858-3107. It is in the comments. Also, what was I getting ready to say? Oh, yeah, man, they were saying that They even had victims as young as 10 years old, man.
Really?
Yeah.
See,
I saw 14.
Why wouldn't you? Why
Yeah.
would you take a
Yeah,
kid
they
to
said
something
10
like
years old
that?
was the youngest that they had that was a victim.
Like a regular concert, I could see, but like one of those festivals, I mean, and it don't have to be Travis Scott, but any of those can get rowdy, can get wild, people doing drugs and all this kind of stuff. I wouldn't take a kid that young to something like that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's just not. I don't think that's cool. That's no.
And
Why
it's
not?
sad
If you
that
let your kid listen to the music.
Oh, I don't.
I want to go to this concert. It's my favorite act.
When you get older,
So, you know,
when you get older,
you know, I gotta be older. I listen to him now. When I get older, he's gonna be already done.
it's more the environment than the music.
Yeah,
it is more
You
than
know what I'm
that. So,
saying?
but some people don't see it that way. They
That's
see,
true.
I'm gonna go have a good time with my
Right.
son, and we're gonna go love us some Travis Scott. So it's like to each his own on that one. Like,
And now, you know, I think
I'm
now,
with you. I'm not taking my 10-year-old.
and I think now, man,
You
the
know,
society,
concerts. They're
the
gonna be a whole
ages,
bunch of people.
the
I ain't
age
gonna know.
ranges.
Not
Now
only-
you have more parents who can really vibe with their kids on whatever
Right.
music they're listening
Right.
to.
True.
Like more now, I think, than ever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
yeah, my kids, they keep me
Thank you.
plugged
Yeah.
into new
Yeah,
music.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
you know, I appreciate it because sometimes they remind me of stuff that I let them listen to years ago and forgot about, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I like this kind of music." I'm like, "You know why you like that?
Right.
I used to play
Right.
this for you when you was
Right.
little.
Right?
Right.
You know,
Just it's already in your ears.
like you just didn't realize it. You might not remember it, but it was there.
It's
I
already
planted
in
that
you.
seed.
Yeah, man.
So listen to it there.
So one thing I'm glad of, man, my kids have a really good sense of music, man. They really do.
And they should though.
I know, right?
They better.
Mhm.
And not so much they better because they may not have been in what Pops did, you know. Because there's people that do that are kids, but they're gone all the time.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
don't get into it, you know. But they were there and they enjoy it and see it themselves. And then look at all these actors. Who are we watching now? All their kids,
Right.
you know.
Right,
All their
right.
kids are the new, you know.
Right.
It's like we're still watching the same actors because they grew up look just like their mom and dad. So it's like, yeah, you'd be watching the movie like, damn, Brad Pitt did, man, that's a good job he did.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Like, where he
right.
go? Because he looked
Yeah.
young. Like, no, that's his
Yeah.
kid. You know, that's his son. That's not
I'm
him.
trying to think when was the last time I did something like that with an actor that looked that much. The dude from Good Times, James Evans.
Mhm.
Mhm.
His son looks exactly
Just
like
like
him,
him.
except
Really?
a much lighter version. He's like
back
lighter than
in the
Devin.
70s and
He's
shit.
lighter than Devin, yeah. Like when you see a picture of him like next to each other, you're like, man, who photoshopped this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you look at him, you see other pictures of him, you're like, wow. Like he is a splitting image of his son, of his daddy, man. For real. For real.
That's interesting.
You see what Esther wrote?
I was looking at that. Yeah.
That's like answering what could have happened.
Uh,
Or maybe that's what they said.
Oh,
on the
The
news.
crowd from the back got excited and tried to make its way towards the front of the stage once Travis Scott started his set. And from that point, all hell broke loose.
There's
Okay.
people in the back trying to get closer. He started jamming. They all got into it and killed people.
Yeah,
That's
man, that's
crazy.
unfortunate.
Yeah,
For
they were
real.
talking about on the radio like a week before. It was he's the only person that can announce something a week prior and it sell out the next day.
yeah.
Because that's what he did with the last 3 days after. He just brings it out. Okay, we're gonna have it this weekend. Next year it's sold out.
And next thing you know, yeah.
You know, so most people got a plan. They got to do all this planning and shit. So he did it, and people sold it out.
Ashley said she felt it was a ritual, but that's another conversation.
You have to go up to her other ones. And
Oh,
you'll see why she's saying
damn.
it.
Yeah.
She's saying
No, I know why she
That's
said
almost
it.
scary.
I know why
Wow.
she said it. I know exactly why
Yeah.
she said it.
That's almost scary, isn't it?
That's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother show.
right.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
That for real is because that's how he look.
Damn.
Like
Yeah,
damn,
man.
where'd you go make yourself white at, man?
Like when you say like somebody look like they daddy,
Wow.
you know somebody that look just
There's
like their
absolutely
daddy.
no way he could deny that.
Right.
Okay. Okay. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, bro.
See, he found a fountain of youth. Went,
Well, he look
jumped in,
exactly
came
like
out
his
light
daddy.
and young.
Yeah, man. For real.
Starting over.
It's crazy when you see.
Boy got younger and caught with a Lego.
Man, you're gonna have people.
Man.
They aliens. They aliens. They,
Right.
They cloning them. That's all. You know, you have to deal with that.
Right.
I just can't look like my daddy. You know.
What do y'all think about the thing in Dallas last week
What happened in Dallas?
with the QAnon folks?
What
They thought John F. Kennedy Jr. was supposed to be coming back.
For real?
Yeah.
They would think that he died.
He was supposed to come back in Dallas and appear in the same spot where his daddy got killed. And so people started gathering in Dallas the night before, like camping out, waiting for him to show up.
Yeah.
And then it was a couple of hundred people there.
That's crazy.
Like
Some of them think he's cute.
Oh yeah, no.
But they came out, and then of course he didn't show up,
right,
and they just all left.
See,
I'm like, what? Huh?
See, you know, those are that's the type of shit that give conspiracies a bad name.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when you start
Stupid
talking
shit,
about
right.
substantial
Right.
conspiracy shit,
Right.
everybody like, yeah, nigga.
right.
Yeah, John
You
F.
must
Kennedy.
have been out there waiting on John F.
Look,
Kennedy.
JFK Jr. is coming back, right? Yeah, okay, I believe you.
Right. See when I start seeing that, me personally, when I start seeing that, I'm like, that's not from Q.
Right.
That's not
exactly.
from Q. Somebody playing a joke.
Exactly.
Or we're in the hands of somebody crazy.
That's what I saw
You
on
know what I'm saying?
Or both.
I believe it was CNN, but somebody said like they think that these QAnon, wherever it came from, and nobody was saying it came from Q, but whoever started it,
Right.
like whoever started this particular rumor, he said they was probably just trolling these people.
Right. Yeah,
But
exactly.
It worked.
Exactly.
And they actually went out there and showed up. But I think some of the people were probably just like waiting around to make fun of them. Like, okay.
Maybe
Right.
so.
Right.
So I don't know. It was I
This
just
is
like
the United States, so you know,
man, don't get me started.
We got people that been abducted
hey man,
and swear that they have
hey man,
with John F. K. Jr.
right?
Mm.
Oh
Hey man, did y'all get a chance to see that UFC card this past weekend?
no.
Yes, we did.
Hey man, it was UFC 268.
Yes, we did.
And for people that like combat sports,
Yeah.
Okay.
they were at the Madison Square Garden, and that's for whatever reasons, you know, you have a long-standing tradition of sports. That's like almost like a sports mecca.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If or better yet, I guess it would say if Vegas would be a sports mecca, that would be sports Medina. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's where everything else goes to. All right. So the very first fight, it was me, Los Amy watching the fight, and the way the fight ended, I went, "Hey y'all, I think we're gonna have a lot of blood tonight."
It was pretty much.
I told him during the first fight, I think we're gonna have a lot of blood tonight, for real.
Yeah.
Everybody was pissed.
Every single fight from the first preliminary fight
Right.
up all the way into the main event, somebody got knocked out, somebody got choked out. There was a lot of blood involved, and at the end, if it went to the decision, it could have went either way.
So they were just going
everybody.
all out.
Now, the ones that didn't do
Everybody
knockouts,
was
it would have
fighting.
been like, I don't know who win that one because it was blah blah blah. blah, blah.
You,
They were
he
fucking
gave
each other
out
up.
6 knockouts of the night
Yeah,
alone.
that was crazy.
You usually only get 1, 2 if you lucky. 6.
Yeah, there was some good fights.
Hey man, that card was off the chain,
Was it a
man.
full moon?
I don't know, man.
The next
I
one-
don't
the next
know,
one looks
man.
like it might be just as good.
Man,
They was popping off their werewolf powers and stuff.
You know?
man, it was so.
The night of the alpha male.
So
But even the females were
I'm
fighting
running the
like
back.
that.
No,
The
you
alpha
know,
female fighters were fighting like that.
the alpha male fight,
Yeah.
and this one was a dude named Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. But when they first made the fight, everybody in the MMA world went, "Ooh, Lord, these two bastards gonna fight. It's gonna be rough."
Yeah.
That's been all the talk. And then when you have people out there, the pundits or whatever, saying, "Well, what's the difference?" and start sizing them up. Well, they both are excellent wrestlers. True. They both real durable. True. So that's what everybody knows. That's what you're looking at, like who's gonna win the wrestling game.
Yeah.
During the press conference, I think it was Michael Chandler say, "Look, man, How about this? We both are really good wrestlers, but we want to give the people what they want. Me and you gonna stand in the middle of the cage
and go toe
to toe. And ain't nobody gonna shoot. And if you know what shoot means, it means go down on one knee and grab him around the waist, take him down. Okay.
Right.
Ain't nobody gonna shoot. Who gonna blink first? Justin Gates was like, "You won't dare stand with me in the middle of the ring." He was like, "Let's do it." From the time them niggas first bell rang up until like what, maybe 2 minutes of the last round.
I gotta see that fight.
Two people stood in the middle of the cage and threw nothing but leg kicks and hands.
One dude tried to
for
go down once, but
13 minutes
when he got
straight.
rocked, he kind of went to grab dude, but then the dude kind of, no, man.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's like, no, don't forget why we're here. You
So the
said
one that got rocked and tried to grab first.
yeah, he was the one that initiated.
Did he lose?
Yeah.
Oh, he was the one that initiated.
He was
So
like,
when-
oh yeah,
so when the other dude said,
yeah,
you don't understand for me. He meant that.
yes.
He bit off more than he could chew.
Yes.
He wasn't ready for that ass.
Yes.
Got him a couple of times.
Yes.
He was trying to grab.
Yes.
Like, come
Oh
on, man.
no.
Yes.
I thought we were supposed to
You
go toe to
said
toe.
you
Yes.
wanted these hands.
Yes.
Let's go.
That fight was bloody. Woo. Man. But they had the utmost respect for each other, though.
Yeah.
They did at the end of the fight.
Yeah.
They had there was no loser. You know what I mean? 'Cause the dude even said, "Hey man, back in the day, like if we was gladiators, man, that man would have went to the death." And that's the kind of regard he had for him.
Yeah.
And when you watching that fight, even if you don't know who they are, what they known for, you see two people's will.
Tearing each other.
There's nothing that can save you from me other than you. Ain't nobody calling timeout.
Right.
Ain't none of your coaches got something that's gonna help you. You know what I'm saying? Ain't the commercial don't go for another 2.5 minutes,
Right.
and you getting the hell beat out of you. What are you going to do?
Right.
You understand? That's what you saw in UFC 268. You saw real fighters, man. You saw real fighters. That was good, man.
Good card.
Absolutely.
Next one looks
But
like
thank you, Dana White. Thank you, for
Yeah.
real. Thank you, Dana White. Shoot,
So man,
I love it.
let's get into it, man.
What's that, man?
Let's get into it. Yeah, man. Let's talk about this Mars thing, man.
Oh man, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds good when you talk about trying to colonize Mars. You know, I mean, that's like any sci-fi nerd's fantasy,
Right.
to be able to actually live on another planet. But realistically speaking, Mars might be the wrong one. I mean, I'll say it like this: the things that it would take for us to be able to live on Mars, we haven't invented everything we need yet to be able to do that. That's my opinion. Because one of the main things it's going to take is because the real hard part about Mars is the lack of an atmosphere
The temperature.
and the dust.
Yeah.
The Martian soil is toxic, and that means that anything that's out exposed to that can't enter whatever structures you're trying to build for people to live on. Because any of that does get in, and it's going to cause respiratory problems for humans. That's just it. And you got to deal with the radiation, because Mars don't have an atmosphere and it don't have a magnetosphere like Earth. You getting, I forgot what the ratio was, but I think it's like 10 times the amount of radiation that you would get, just being on Earth. It's a tough ask, man. You would have to, it would literally take machines. We'd have to invent AI to be able to send them there, have them build the structures first, because the stuff is going to at least have to be partially built for us to get there. And then we could actually go there once that's done. And we haven't invented computers that can do that yet. Not yet.
That's why we do it ourselves.
From
Why we
from
do it ourselves.
part of what I was looking up too, man, was Elon Musk was saying that by the year, I believe 2028,
26.
from the information that I saw, it actually said 2028, but it's 2 years difference, you know.
From having put somebody there,
being able to start the first inklings of what they could build as a colony, because they were saying that, and what you're saying, a lot of what you're saying is true. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just far as what I found and stuff. But it was also saying that one of the reasons why they chose Mars is because, one, it does have water, even though it's mostly in ice.
Yeah.
But they've also said that there may be huge reserves of water underneath.
Yeah.
Right. So it has water. And they're saying under certain conditions that earth plants, they could grow earth plants on Mars, which would, of course, you know, send out oxygen and all of that stuff, which would create the atmosphere.
There's a project that some of these scientists are working on where they created a building material that can be 3D printed, made out of the Mars dust,
right,
a couple other things, and corn. And so, like, and they've got it to the point where it's working. But of course, the one problem with trying to do that on Mars is growing the corn.
Right.
So either you're going to have to transport enough corn there, or you're going to have to grow it there.
Right.
And so, but they're trying to see if that's one of the plants that might be able to survive in that Mars environment, because they have CO2.
You never know, because corn does have that little shell, that little plastic like shell around it, which is why it doesn't, you know, digest the same.
That defeats one of the purpose of going somewhere else. We don't have enough for us. Why would we send it to them? We don't have enough corn for ourselves.
Well,
so we can't.
I would think
so. We can't. They have to learn to grow it.
More than likely,
we're not trying to send our reserves to a planet that's starting to start. They got to start doing their own.
Well, yeah, but I think you want to start off. If you
have to. No, well, you have to send something to see if they can grow it.
But then I don't think they're gonna, like, if they were able to do that, I don't think they're gonna continue to do that.
It would take.
You know what I mean?
They have to grow their own, because once we know that you can't grow it, well, we're not sending you anymore.
But it would take decades to get to that point to where they would even be able to grow stuff at the volumes you would need to be able to support a healthy colony.
Yeah.
I mean, there's possibilities with like vertical, vertical farming, where, you know, combining that with like different greenhouse technologies, and you combine that with what do they call it? Where they grow fish and plants at the same time, because basically the fish feed off the plants feed off the fish waste, and the fish feed off the plants. So you can do that on something like Mars, but then again, that's for like a small crew. Yeah. That doesn't scale up. At least we haven't been able to scale that up yet to where we would need to be able to try to support a whole colony on Mars. Yeah. But the thing that I thought was interesting, well, two things I thought was interesting. One was that idea Elon Musk had about nuking the polar caps, the polar caps on Mars to try to create an atmosphere.
Right.
And then they were talking about building underground to help protect us from the radiation, because, like I said, since you get exposed so much more radiation on the surface of Mars, why not build structures underground? Even though that seems kind of counterintuitive when you think about exploring another planet. I want to explore another planet just to be stuck underground for the rest of my life.
Right.
But
I mean, if you have to do it,
if you got to do it, and if that's where if you think about it, because they think about the large reserves of water that are underground, that just puts you closer to the water source in a very real way.
Right.
So we know how to build tunnels. We know how to build underground structures. We just don't use it that much here. Right. But we can I think that would be a viable option, or the most viable option, really, because otherwise you're gonna wind up with space cancer from every astronaut that goes up there. Yeah. Either that or some mutants.
And they were also saying that because of the lack of gravity and stuff like that, that bone density will, you know, bone density and muscle mass will start to decrease, you know, over periods of time. I think they said you lose like 1% bone density every month and like
I think they called
5%
it space
muscle
induced
mass every week or something.
low gravity induced osteoporosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's like osteoporosis, but it's not caused by you not getting enough
Right.
calcium or something.
Right.
It's your bones just are not able to do what they need to do in that
Right.
low gravity situation.
Right.
Even the heart, the human heart, they said, can be affected by low gravity for extended periods of time. Because just like any other muscle, it relies on the resistance of gravity
Right.
for its motion. You take that away, and it doesn't have to pump as hard
Right.
to try to get the blood all over your body because it doesn't have that resistance.
It's a muscle.
Then you come back to Earth.
Right.
Your shit just freeze up.
Then we do artificial gravity and things like that. You'd have to be, you can't float around all the time. You have to be on the ground. So the domes, if they built domes, that'll all be, set up to where the air, it's just how can you continue producing that air? And, because that's one of the cons. You might run out of air, or you might not find no damn water.
Yeah.
Food is very scarce. A lot of what he said is most of the cons.
Yeah.
Is what they said. There's a lot of different things. For one is I think the main one is because Mars, like here, one of the pros is it can help us survive. Planet, so we can become a multi-planetary species, and we may need somewhere else to go. Another pro is, that's the closest one we have to us. I understand how it might not be the right one, but we can barely get to this. So how the hell do you think we're gonna get to another one? But you're talking another 1,000 years.
But you know what we
need
could
to
do?
learn how to
Mars.
Yeah, because he said Mars is the wrong one, but there's no other one that we can go to in our solar system. We can't even get to this motherfucker
yet.
The
only reason they saying we can get to Mars is because at certain times of the year,
it's
the closest one to us, but even at certain times of the year,
every 2 years,
it's enough. It's close enough.
It's
for us to
every 2 years we line up where we're close to it. But what we could do instead of Mars, is build up something on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
The moon doesn't have water, but it's much closer. We can use the moon as a training ground for Mars. You go and build this working colony on the moon. Then that's going to give you, not only are you going to come up with different technologies, not only are you going to learn things from being out in space and exposed and see how materials actually respond to different things. You're gonna learn all of that, and then you're gonna have people with hands-on experience in dealing with that kind of hostile environment who could maybe be some of the first people to go to Mars. So I would say, even though you don't have the water source that you do, because it's so much closer to Earth, it's be a lot easier to move materials between back and forth between here and the moon to get everything set up. Yeah. And so then once you get on the moon, who knows if the base on the moon is big enough and prosperous enough, you might be able to build ships that take off from the moon rather than Earth, which are going to take way less fuel because they don't have to fight up against the same amount of gravity or atmosphere just to get into space. They're already there.
That's a good point, man.
What he's saying makes a lot of sense because that would be what you do, but to humanity, the moon is old news.
Yeah,
we want to go to Mars. We'll deal with the moon later. Because once we find out that, look, we can get to Mars. So let's start building shit here that can get us there easier, but continue to build there at the same time so that when this is ready from the moon to send ships and supplies, we got places to land these ships safely and make them go that way. But yeah, the moon is old news. We want to go to Mars. That's the next step. And as a humanity, let's go further.
And the conditions on the moon are way more
hospitable.
Yeah.
And there's chance that, because the moon is closer, then okay, we can send you shit back and forth. No problem. You ain't that far. Yeah, but Mars is a whole different story.
But it's less, but you know what? It's also less gravity. The gravity percentage is even, there is no gravity on the moon, right?
Very little. Yeah. Very little.
And the things they're trying to do on Mars,
it's like 40%. It's about 40% of what we have here.
And you can dig and drill. You can't really start digging and drilling on the moon too much because you mess that up, you just messed us up. So it's better to leave the moon alone. I can still see them colonizing and building places that would be perfect to have ships leave from there. But what they're going to do is have ships leave from space stations. That's when the ships will leave from, not from the ground. Because we still got to get it up off the ground. When I already got it halfway sitting, you just take off from here. So
build it in space, and you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, just build all that shit up there. and go.
Because like you look at the space shuttle now, and of course we all know the classic shape of the space shuttle. But when it takes off, it always has those 3 big extra rockets on it. You could eliminate that whole process if you already out on the moon or from a space station or something like that. You don't even have to have that step.
But we want to make sure we get there first. So I say he's my favorite human. He's gonna show me man on Mars.
But doesn't it make you wonder why they haven't tried that?
What, the moon thing?
Yeah,
the moon thing.
I was saying that instead of trying to do Mars first, we should potentially do the moon. Not only would we gain practical experience in hands-on outer space building and technology and stuff like that, but the technology that we would develop in order to make a moon colony work would be just as applicable on Mars.
Okay. So right now, where SpaceX is, and also Project Blue Origin,
is that somebody calling?
Someone called?
Oh yeah, it was. Oh cool.
It didn't ring.
It didn't ring for some reason.
The ringer's not on. Hold up, what was calling?
Oh, somebody's calling in. Thank you.
Is that what that is?
Who is the birthday? Oh no, this is
a reminder.
Yeah, I guess it was just a reminder.
Okay.
That was weird.
Okay, so
Fun.
what they have
Somebody
is
do need to call in now.
right now they're working on something called the Artemis program, and the Artemis program is going to have humans back on the moon by 2024. This is a Musk SpaceX project, and it's going. They was able to get that contract because they got the contract with NASA for $2.9 billion when NASA was prepared to pay $23 billion through the Apollo program for the same service, which would have been delivered at a later date. So then they're using the moon now for a jump off point now, if you will, for like getting to Mars. So if there's anything we may need or whatever, you don't have to go to the moon to get to Mars.
It's easier to send
but
it,
if there's like, let's say for whatever reason you need whatever supply, whatever, we could use it almost like as a refueling station, if you will.
Right.
Because the window is a 2-year launch date. So if you and during that 2-year launch date, when it's good for you to launch, you primarily want to launch between June and August.
Yeah.
So that's a narrow window that they could even use at this point, just from our relation to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing about what they've also been working on is, since 2015, they've already had a simulation for how we're going to make it on Mars. They did it in Hawaii, as a matter of fact. Zach Wilson and 5 others been living in a 1,500 square feet plastic dome on the Hawaiian island for 1 year. They've been eating freeze-dried food. The shelf life of that food is 2 years. Show you how good we've done. Mm-hmm. They've been testing them for social isolations, 20-minute delayed communications, because when you send a message to Mars and vice versa, it takes a long time, whatever reason.
That'll get
so they're studying the group dynamics, their psychology, how to grow food under LEDs, Earth and Mars transfers, how they respond under stress and sleep. We have that figured out.
We're already working on this shit.
We already know. We don't even have to have a conversation if we're gonna do it. They've already decided
like that. Well, if
this
the conditions,
is how it's going to be done.
The conditions there are the same as if I put a dome there, as what happened here.
We automatically know group dynamic. This was 2015.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
You understand? This is what SpaceX was doing.
Yeah.
So they already know who they want to go, and that's going to include some person of color and a female. They said specifically that'll be part of the crew. Also, to answer your question, where right now they use regarding the shuttle and everything, why not use the rockets? Yeah, they use that kind of technology, like you have the 2 solid rocket boosters and the central fuselage for space shuttles. Where with the Falcon Heavy or the Falcon 9 project, they got a capacity. The Falcon 9 has a capacity of 60 satellites. So meaning when they go up in space, they can deploy 60 satellites
at one
shot.
Right.
That's really good, right? Under Elon Musk, now they have something called the Starship. It does 400.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's a lot
Why
of
are they
stuff
doing that? Because the way we get to Mars and sets that up is going to take precedence on how well we get and thrive.
Right.
I'm sorry, to the moon. How well we do regarding regarding the moon is going to determine how well we get to Mars and deal with Mars.
Yeah.
But we've been practicing now, so we know how we're going to live. We're going to be in domes for a while.
Yeah, no, that's
But
what it is.
they're talking about terraforming, and they're very serious about this.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about terraforming is Mars rotates one time for every 24 hours on its axis.
Just like ours.
It's a lot like a
It
Earth.
just takes longer to go around.
They have polar ice caps that may have water, but it's frozen CO2 as of right now.
Yeah.
And that what he's saying, blow that up. I mean, that's all sci-fi movie shit, but that shit can be what works.
Someone said that Elon Musk mentioned about nuclear weapons.
Polar caps.
Part of the process of what they're saying is a potential to induce the greenhouse effect on Mars.
Yeah.
It's launching the equivalent of 3,500 nuclear warheads daily just to get Mars's atmosphere breathable. But then you have to deal with radiation in your soil.
Right, that's the problem.
That's the contingency plan. Like, okay, how are we going to deal with that? But that's the route
But
that
hey,
we're
that's
on.
what we're doing. That's what we got
But
to do.
the one problem with that though is Mars doesn't have the magnetic field to be able to hold on to the atmosphere. You might be able to start that chain reaction to where you can get a greenhouse effect, but the problem with Mars is that because it doesn't have the magnetosphere, it's going to lose that atmosphere. Because the prevailing theory now is that Mars had an atmosphere at one point,
Right.
very similar to Earth.
Right.
But because it doesn't have that magnetosphere, it lost its atmosphere to the solar winds.
Right.
That is what would just happen. It would happen just all over again if we can't solve the problem with the magnetosphere on Mars.
So part of the issue with terraforming, the Elon Musk and SpaceX have also said, when you're talking about terraforming, you're talking about making a planet with Earth-like conditions suitable for human life. His issue was, we said we can do that, but you're talking about a very long time.
Yeah.
Thousands of years
Okay.
from now.
And part of that is they're talking about, you say solar winds. They have something, I forgot what the name of it was, but they have some type of deflectors that would be used to direct that energy towards the planet that the planet normally could use anyway, but it's not. So it's just going by whatever. They redirecting the energy from the sun towards the planet back to that planet to help jumpstart the process, which is a possibility. Like, they've thought this out is the point that I'm making.
They're not just saying we're going to Mars.
They're not just people sitting around saying,
Well,
hey man, I'm good at
They're
rockets.
really trying to do this.
Like, Elon Musk is so serious. He's like, man, if we don't go according to our timeline and we go according to NASA's timeline, man, he's talking about a long time before he
2030, 33.
take the next step.
Yeah.
He's talking about a long time.
He's almost 7, 8 years, 10 years ahead of
He's
them.
very committed to it.
Yeah.
He's very committed.
We just got to see we get there. Let's get there and see. None of us are going to see what happens while what's there, but I just want to see that motherfucker get there.
Even Joe Rogan.
Because it's going to take a while before they start. Depending on our technology.
Have y'all ever heard of cyanobacteria?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying that also can help.
Yeah.
You know, cause the
if
the
they
process.
can if they can get those bacteria to grow
Yeah.
on they think cyanobacteria is what caused Earth to have oxygen in its atmosphere back in prehistory. So if you can get that to Mars and get it to grow and flourish, that bacteria by itself could potentially cause that cascade greenhouse effect, where you get enough oxygen in the atmosphere for us to be able to.
Another reason they're going is to make sure that,
and then convert it into oxygen, then there you go. But it's
to make sure that learn more about, now that we're there, we can learn more about this planet to the point where what we're seeing here is what's happening back home, which means that's going to turn into this.
So
that's one of the main reasons we got to find out.
So
because a lot of people think that there was two Earth-like planets.
There's an interesting thought. There's an interesting thought regarding that. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson says, listen, if we get to the point where we can terraform Mars, we will be at a point where we can re-terraform Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Make all.
So it doesn't have to be a gloom and doom projection.
Right.
If we're talking about us, commencing our own extinction, for whatever reasons. Like, if we're at that point where we can do that for Mars, We can do that for Earth. So you're looking at a whole different reality now.
Right. You know, or even from things we're learning from Earth, that's what we're going to use there.
Right.
You know, but yeah, I mean, and then the other thing that we were going to talk about too is once this goes, and Elon Musk wants that. What kind of government was it? Where everybody has a say so, you know, in their laws and stuff. And then who controls those laws if there's no leader? I mean, wouldn't the person that if I'm the head of the police force of this planet, I'm the leader of this planet. What's stopping me from taking over? You know, because there have to be a leader. I mean, when we talked about it, they're already thinking government somewhere we haven't even been yet. So it's not going to be any different than here.
What he's talking about is it is Elon Musk's plan by 2050 to have at least 1 million people on Mars.
That's
Self-sustaining colony group, whatever, 1 million people.
With that government where everybody has a voice.
If you want to deal with 1 million people, there's going to have to be some sense of governance involved.
Right.
This is where we have to get into the personality of the man now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand.
Absolutely.
We have to understand who we're dealing with now, because the individual that allowed us to get here may be a different type of individual, politically speaking.
Right.
But if this is the individual responsible for us getting here, and it's his rules, what is that government going to look like? He's often stated that he's all about a direct democracy.
That's what he was saying. Yeah.
A direct democracy.
That's what he wants.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
It is an interesting choice.
My thing is once he gets there, I mean, who's stopping him from saying, "This is mine. I got here first." I don't know if there's laws. I know there's laws about interstellar stuff that you can't claim to, but yet for you saying they can't claim to, a lot of people are short talking about, oh, that's a good investment. That might be good for, to invest in. Why? We're not talking about money here. You're already putting monetary value on stuff and putting government stuff. And you're not changing. By the time you get 50 millionaires, it's going to be the same shit here as if you just lived there.
I guess the concern is like when you start dealing with people that number, and then you're going to start having different ways we think we can make the process better. Mm-hmm. And when you start having that kind of independent thinking in a very, very stressful situation, is living on Mars, because we're going to definitely be in domes for a very long time.
Right.
How are you going to manage these individuals? Is it going to look like the human resources, occupational handbook they give you to let you all the rules,
that's the
of that company? Is that going to be? Is that how it's going to be? That's how we got here.
Right.
Or are we looking at maybe the beginning of man going in a very different direction? Because we're talking about now getting off the planet for good.
Right.
That's a whole different consideration.
We become Martians.
Mars has a whole lot of consequences we really are not discussing.
What happens in the future? They get better than us and decide to come back.
But that's the thing.
Take the resources.
If you think about it, within a couple of generations, if say we were able to get it set up successfully, right? Within a couple of generations, you're going to have a population on Mars that has no memory of ever living on Earth.
Fair enough.
They would have never been here.
Fair enough.
Mars is their home.
Yeah,
fair enough.
They're Martians.
They're Martians.
Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough.
So they're not Earthlings anymore. And then on top of that, the longer we have a colony there, the longer that colony is self-sustaining, the more divergence you're going to have in the human population.
Absolutely.
Because that group that's on Mars is going to start adapting to Mars.
Right. Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So eventually you could wind up with two separate human species.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You would.
If it kept going for long enough, it would eventually get there.
That's right.
But that's just the plan. That's what we want.
That's what we want.
As of right now, we're the only ones.
That's where we're going.
Let's make another one. Until we run into another one, let's just keep making more. It's just after this one, it's going to take a long time.
It's going to be a very long time before
we can't do nothing else in our solar system. We're done.
Yeah.
We can't land on maybe the moons of Saturn, Europa, and some of that. Maybe we could make little colonies there too, but that's not a planet. That would almost be like
Mars figured out.
That would be like corporations that have little moons done.
You know what I mean? Like we're doing that. We got Mars figured out.
Right.
So I mean, just think about how far
we have to leave our solar
system
to find another planet like this to even land.
It's going to be interesting. Either that, or we have a new way of. We have a different set of jet propulsion system.
That's the one thing we need is how speed. without that speed, we're not going too far. It's going to take a long time to get out of our
But
solar system.
if you
With
have
people,
if you have a human population that's adapted to living in
That's what I was
low
about to say.
gravity environment,
Mhm.
in
Imagine
those
technology
hostile
that they
situations,
develop.
adapted to the solar radiation, adapted to all the different things that they would encounter on Mars.
Mhm.
That's a race that could travel further in space than a regular human could. A Terran human could.
And imagine
That's too
their-
hypothetical for me to buy.
right. Plus,
But
either way,
imagine-
we still
but
need the
imagine-
That's
technology to
purely
go that
hypothetical.
fast.
Imagine-
That is just purely
You know,
hypothetical.
they're
I'm
gonna
not buying
react
that.
to Mars and think about how Mars, how everything works on Mars. So when they're creating newer technology, that technology is not gonna be like what we created here on Earth. You know what I'm saying?
I'm listening to you.
And I think when they start making like jet propulsion systems, it's gonna be from the aspect of what you have on Mars, what you're dealing with on Mars, not what you're dealing with on Earth.
If you're dealing with lower, just changing one major factor like lower gravity,
Right.
that people is gonna think about the world differently
Exactly.
from how we approach it.
Yeah, but we're not gonna be so different evolutionary where we're damn near be two different species.
You don't think so?
We'll still be human.
No.
Still be human, no matter
No,
what.
you're gonna be human at the end of the day.
No matter
No.
Because think about it.
No,
the only
you're
way to
gonna
make
be-
the only way to
no,
make Mars
no,
two humans, we
no,
just happen to live on Mars.
No.
But
Right.
we're
You're
still
gonna be
human.
humans, but I think what
No
he's
matter
talking
what.
about is way down the line.
Way
right?
down. Yeah.
Way down the line. Humans are going to adapt.
Ain't tripping on that.
You know what I'm saying?
Ain't tripping on
To Mars and its atmosphere and the lack of gravity and all of that. Your body is going to conform to what you have to deal with on Mars. So your bone density and all of that, you know what I'm
But
saying?
see, I
It's gonna
disagree.
have
when
to
you go
change.
But see, that's
outside.
where I disagree with you.
Okay.
Because whenever they build these domes or what they're trying to set up for Mars, they're bringing
That's-
the Earth's
That's
atmosphere with them,
Earth-like.
and they're bringing gravity with
Right.
them. They're not going to be just
Gravity.
floating around and living in
Right.
zero G all damn
Or
day
going
long.
outside
Right,
that
they're
dome,
going-
which they would change.
They're going to have similar conditions as to where
Right.
the body's not going to change too much going forward.
Right. But if you have people living on Mars, right?
Right.
They're not going to just stick to that. So they're going to be doing things to develop ways to where they can live outside of those, well, maybe not live at first, but interact outside of those domes and not be, you know what I'm saying? Not be conformed to staying inside of those structures that they built, right? And the more that they develop technology, it's going to be, they're going to find ways to lessen their need for all of these things that's going to sustain them to be able to live outside of those structures.
What special science are they going to develop that we already wouldn't have? Dealing with Martian environment.
You got to be able to.
But you got to be, they're going to be on that, they're going to be on Mars.
I
So there's no way I could tell you that.
Whether you live on Mars or whether you live on Earth, science as it is giving an account for the atmosphere or non-atmosphere thereof of Mars. What information, because they live here now, are they going to be privy to, or what experience are they going to be privy to that's going to help them improve their conditions under those circumstances that we can't mimic here on Earth?
But that's
how could I ever answer that? You would only be able to.
That's my point. So
but just because we don't know the answer to that now doesn't mean that it's not possible. Because they're not going to just stick to what they came up with here.
I understand, but whatever they came up here, that's how they're able to stay where they are. There's going to be no more new innovation from individuals, whether they live there for 75 years, 175 years.
I disagree.
How can you say that humans aren't going to innovate? That's what we do.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
But they're still going to be using the same science that we have now. So you're looking
But
at
science from a different perspective. If you know how science works, sometimes it's not even about the answer. Sometimes it's about asking the right question. You change somebody's perspective and you can ask the right question. You can look at the problem from a different way. So once you become a population that is used to living on Mars, you don't think like a human on Earth. You think like a human on Mars. Your thought processes can change, which means that you can look at a problem, whereas a human on Earth, a native Earth human, can look at the problem and say, well, I can't figure that out. because of what experiences and things you've had on Mars, you might be able to see a different solution.
What
to that
questions would they be asking science to solve from them that would radically differ from you and I on survival under the same conditions?
It doesn't have to be different questions. The answers can be different because of the perspective.
Jonathan,
change.
the question was, what reality are individuals living under those conditions on Mars for however long? What are they trying to address that would be radically different as a threat, as a means of harm to our survival? Whether we live on Mars or whether we live on Earth, whether we live on the moon, what are they going to be dealing with that's going to be a different threat than us?
But everything they would be dealing with they would be dealing with on Mars is more deadly than what we deal with.
So if I went to Mars, I would have the same hazard presented to me than the individuals that lived there for 200 years, right?
No, because somebody who's lived there for 200 years would have at least some adaptations to the environment that they're living under. You being fresh from Earth,
that would improve their conditions naturally outside.
Not
the
saying it would improve.
Thank
it
you
would
very
be
much.
different.
Go off the boat.
What are they going?
Can't leave the boat.
We're saying that
cannot leave the
we're
boat.
not saying that the conditions would
So
be better.
You think that they're going to try to find ways to be able to survive outside of the boat?
What I am saying, y'all not understanding what I'm saying.
Air.
I am saying the thought process by which they're going to solve any problem they're presented on on Mars, whether they lived on Mars 500 years, whether they lived on Mars 5 minutes, whatever that issue is, it is not too different than what you and I would deal with under the same conditions.
Right.
There will be no leap in human evolution so far because we live under the conditions of Mars, where we're going to have two different living realities. Whatever your issues are on Mars, it's not too different than if you go get the average human from anywhere and put them under the same conditions.
Right.
You're not going to have two equations for two different species. That's what I'm saying.
You're still living under our conditions.
We're not going to change physically enough.
Outside the dome.
Period.
But what is enough?
Jonathan, you can't get all with semantics. You understand exactly when I say there's a spectrum of what under conditions man lives. Whatever that spectrum is, whether it's on Mars, whether it's on Jupiter, whether it's on Mercury, it doesn't matter. That spectrum is not going to change. There will not be enough change in the human species for them to approach the problem any different.
Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, so you have the self-sustaining colony on Mars, right?
I'm listening.
Okay, so you have that self-sustaining colony, been there now for probably about 5-6 generations. Probably about the third generation, something happens where the oxygen supply is not able to be produced at the same level that it had been. Maybe they ran out of stuff that we had been sending from Earth. Maybe we stopped sending it. We just told them, y'all self-sufficient, figure it out. Okay. So they're living in a lower oxygen environment because of something that happened there. That's not a condition that people have to live with on Earth, but because they have to deal with that, they adapt to it over a couple of generations. They're just like people who live high in the mountains for generations. They develop the ability to be able to breathe that thinner air than people who live at sea level. Same kind of thing. The human body will adapt. We can't say everything that might happen on a colony that's that far away in that different of environment, and over the course of generations, what might happen to those people. There could be some major differences. It might not be something that me or you or any of us right now might be able to theorize about, but there would eventually become some differences in between those two groups of people. It happens with any species. When you separate them for long enough, isolation makes differences. That's just what happens in evolution.
How different is a pygmy from a Scandinavian?
If you're looking at height, very
I don't care what you're looking at. You tell me.
Right.
No.
But just like we had multiple species of hominids walking around at one point.
Okay. Now, when you look at the Scandinavian, let's say someone from Sweden versus the pygmy, other than height, you're pretty much dealing with the same species, aren't you?
Right. But
the same threats posed to them, right?
But that is, again, an adaptation to their environment.
That's not what I said. I said the same hazards, whether it's a pygmy or the Scandinavian, they apply equally, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What are you going to do to make life better for the pygmy that's going to be so different than what you would provide for the Swedish or from the Scandinavian?
I don't follow your question.
My question is, if I'm going to say, okay, look, we have two different individuals separated by almost 5,000 years, is my point, on the same planet, and all we've seen is height and skin color, And we've attributed a lot of that to diet. Okay. Now, when you talk about, yes, we have human variants, but this group here, they're different from this group here because of said characteristics. What hazards would you say, okay, this applies to Scandinavians, it doesn't apply to pygmies? That's my question. An individual that's on Mars, if they raised on Mars under low G situations, the atmosphere in which they live is going to be so close to human life, there will be hardly any evolution physically that's going to make us or demarcate us one from another.
Even like
because the conditions have to be like Earth.
Well,
that's how we go forward.
Right, and like what he was saying, no, but how you were saying, if we decide, figure out for yourself, we're not going to do that for one, and they're not going to let themselves go 100 years with breathing less air. They're going to build more air.
Mars technology improves. Mars technology improves according to us being to mimic this environment.
All I'm saying is that the possibility for the variation would exist because you have the isolation because of the distance away that they would be living and the two extremely different environments. That's all I'm saying. The possibility exists for it to happen. I'm not saying it's a definite, but I definitely think it's possible.
Because of low G. And because of
different environment. Because of all the, not just one thing, but the entire environment.
But what is that individual coming in contact with on a daily basis?
We don't know.
We do know it's called an Earth-like environment because we are pumping oxygen into this area. We're trying to develop some kind of gravity in this said area. We're trying to figure out how to grow certain things under ultralight with minimal oxygen because of this area that we built that's a mimic of Earth atmosphere. That's how NASA works.
And that's going to be what's initially there. Over time, that may change.
We can't function properly.
But we don't know how our functions will change once we get there.
I just really believe that once they're on there, it's a couple of generations down, they're going to be trying to do new things. They're going to be doing experiments to try to survive a little differently than what they brought to Mars.
I got no problem with that.
Right, and I think when they start developing whatever technology that they develop, whatever it is that they develop, it's going to get them closer to being able to live differently than how they were living.
Are they going to use a new science?
I mean, of course, it does probably
not a new form of science, but a new science, because everything that they do from Mars is still going to apply to the scientific method, period. You may employ it differently in certain ways, but fundamentally, their approach towards it is going to be the scientific method.
But the scientific method,
their results may be different, but it ain't going to be nothing new in terms of like, for example, case in point, why choose Mars? Just to show you how they're thinking. Why choose Mars? Why not Neptune?
Because Mars is closer.
Mars is closer.
Number one. Why else?
Because it has water.
Because the moon is closer, right? We can set up at the moon, but we ain't got plans on occupying the moon and colonizing the moon.
Well,
why Mars?
Because it has water.
Yeah.
Supposedly, historically speaking, it's theorized that it had water because of the sand dunes and the shapes that it's making.
The only thing that's theorized is the water underneath. From what I've read, they literally have ice
at the poles.
There's ice on,
but there's no oxygen in it. That's why I said here it says it's carbon, frozen CO2. That's all it is. That's why they're talking about, well, it possibly had water when they talk about water. When they talk about water, now they're thinking, well, it's so cold, it may be under the permafrost deep down underneath the surface. But at the poles, they have a similar situation like we have North and South Pole. It's a frozen tundra, North and South. Looks a lot like Earth, but ain't no oxygen in that ice. They just told you it's frozen CO2. So when they're talking about trying to greenhouse and stuff, that's when you start hearing all these really weird ideas coming apart. But we don't know if there's water there or not. Yeah. We don't. At best, our leading best thought regarding Mars and water is at one point it had it because of the way the sand looks. And we've seen that before. It's called here on Earth. We know we're pretty confident that was water, but we just can't prove it. Can't find one iota.
Yeah.
So to get back on points regarding your issue, whatever they use to solve whatever methods whatever predicaments they're facing. I wouldn't care if it was 500 years down the line, 1,000 years down the line. They're still going to employ the scientific method. And with that method of thinking, whatever solution that they come to solve their problem will not be too radically different, whether it's 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, and I'm living there. It's not going to be too radically different than what you and I need to survive on Earth. I promise you. Because you're dealing with the scientific method even now.
But the scientific method also shows us that evolution is going to happen. And if you have a species that's separated by that much distance and that much isolation, there's bound to be some variations, and those variations are going to build up over time. Even if you're looking at the exposure to the radiation that you would get on Mars, that in itself caused genes mutations. And if some of those mutations happen to be things that work to the survival of the species that's there, the survival of the colonists that's there, then those genes will get passed along. It's natural selection.
We're not going to be subject to any radiation on Mars.
You can't say that with 100%.
Because that's part of the plan. They're trying to say we can't survive if we're exposed to certain things like that. So you won't be exposed to things like that because you have to survive. The only thing that they've said.
Anybody with any comments, please call in.
I mean, the point I'm making is they're bringing the Earth with them.
If anybody has any comments or y'all have any ideas y'all want to
Oh,
add
we're going over.
anything like that, please call in, man. Please call in.
We're going over.
I'm giving y'all 4 more minutes, but yeah. Anybody
got
got any
shout
comments or any shout outs?
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, man.
It's how this shit
You know
is.
what,
I feel like I'm on the sun.
Before we do wrap up, I told somebody I would shout them out.
That's what's up.
A friend of mine went to high school with me, fellow Brad. His son has a podcast called the Barely Blunt Podcast.
Okay.
It's your
That's
local
what's up,
dose of it's your monthly dose of local Alaskan cannabis and music content. So check it out and see what they talk about. You know, they talk about cannabis, that legal stuff like that,
That's
and
what's
also
up.
they do music and stuff like that. But I did tell him I'd shout him out. So yeah, the Barely Blunt Podcast on Spotify. Check it out.
Bet.
Nice. That's what's
man.
up. For real.
AJ,
Yeah, man.
Get better, my brother.
Yeah,
He just went
for
through
real.
some surgery.
Oh,
Get better, my
wow.
brother
Yeah,
AJ.
most definitely. Shout out to AJ, man. Oh,
For real.
Shout out to my
real
mom.
good brother, man. Oh yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah, my mom made 81.
Happy birthday.
This past Saturday.
Yeah, and my mom made 82 on the 5th.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, and my daughter's birthday was on the 6th. She
Happy
made
birthday.
14.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give a shout out to my mom. I hope you're feeling better. I know you've been under the weather, but I'm gonna ask everybody to just put you up in prayer. I hope you recover well. So we praying for you to do better. And thank you all my friends that's here to check us out and everything. Family, thank
Yeah,
all
man,
of
we
y'all.
really appreciate y'all for being here, man. Once again, y'all, this is the Daily Smoke. We love y'all.
Yeah.
We appreciate y'all for being here,
Kevin,
sitting
man.
with us, watching us grow, and pass the word, man. Pass the
Yes.
word.
Yeah,
Share.
man.
Hit
Share.
that subscribe button, hit
yeah,
that
hit the
share button,
subscribe
hit the
button.
like.
Yeah, hit all of that because we're trying to grow and we need y'all to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
check
if
us
y'all
out.
like it, help pass the word, man. We really, really appreciate it. We're gonna start doing some raffles and things like that. So, you know, we can get y'all merchandise like the Daily Smoke cups and things like that, shirts, hoodies, maybe hats, you know what I'm
All
saying?
that
Whatever,
stuff.
you know, a lot of different things. So y'all stick with us and we appreciate y'all. And I'm your boy Big Ruck.
I'm Brother Ron.
Brother Jam.
And Brother Lopes.
Behind the camera, your brother
Bobby
Bishop.
Black Hands.
And that's his karate name. And this is the Daily Smoke, and we out of here.
We turn.